This is Lesson 2 in a Pickle. In this lesson, students are going to continue working on the observation skills that they worked on in the previous lesson while talking about the life cycle of cucumbers and pickles. So the first thing you're going to do is ask students what they already know about where pickles come from. They may or may not know that they are part of the cucumber plant. Once they have talked about that and you've talked about the different stages of the life cycle of the cucumber, students are going to do some observations. Remind them that with biodiversity, we're talking about how living things are different. They have similarities and differences at the same time. You're going to start by passing out pickle spears to students. Depending on the size of your group, you may use the whole spear, you may cut them into halves or quarters. Remind students that this is a science activity, so we're not eating these. We're not using our taste right now. We're just using our other observation skills. So the first thing we want students to do is to look at the outside of the pickle and see what they notice. Have them compare with people around them to see what's similar from each of the spears and what's different. Maybe the number of the bumps, if there appear to be stripes or ridges. Have them again use that really precise language other than it looks cool, it looks gross, things like that. We want them to be very specific and work on those language skills. So the next thing you're going to do is talk about how the pickles might be different from each other on the inside, and have them look at the inside and what could possibly be different from one to the other. We want to introduce the idea that each pickle spear may have a different number of seeds, and that's what they're going to experiment with today. So each student or group of students will take their pickle spear and they're going to use a craft stick to scoop out as many seeds as they can. And they're going to separate those. That's the data that they're going to be collecting, is the number of seeds that are in each pickle spear. So you'll want to give some time for them to experiment with that and some working time so that they can get them separated. You may need to, if students say they're done, you may need to have them go back, use the craft stick to scrape a little bit more of it away because sometimes there are still more seeds in there. And then they're going to count their number of seeds and record that in their book. Then, incorporating our math standards into the lesson, you will create a class graph of how many different spears had each number of seeds in them. So you can work on your mathematics data and graphing as well. So the next thing that students are going to do is they're going to observe these seeds. You're going to introduce the tool that they'll be using as the hand lens. Remind them that when they use a hand lens, there's 3 different things that can be moved. Either your eye can be moved as you move closer or further away from it. You can move the hand lens to get it where you need, or you can move the item under the hand lens, but you're only going to remove one of those things at the same time. You don't try to move all 3 at once. So the first thing we want our students to observe is what those pickle seeds look like under the hand lens. Next, we're going to give them some cucumber seeds, and we'd like them to look at the cucumber seeds with the pickle seeds to notice the difference. The differences in color, they can feel them, see that there's differences in texture, and we want them to make the observations on those. At that point, you are done with the pickles, and you're going to move on to the next experiment dealing with cucumbers, and this is one that will last for some time. They will need to follow the directions that are in their student workbook on how to set up this experiment. Ahead of time, you will need to prepare cups for them by using the pellets, putting them in a cup with some water. If you do that generally at the beginning of the lesson or right before you start the lesson, once you get to this point, the soil will have expanded and they will be ready for planting. So students are going to need to plant 2 cucumber seeds into each of their peat pellets. And they'll just cover those with the soil from the peat pellet. The tool that they're going to be using for watering is the graduated cup, and you'll want them to notice that there are several different measurements on here, including ounces and milliliters. We're going to be using the 1 ounce mark for this, for them to water their plant. They'll use a craft stick to keep track of their names. Put that in there. When they are done following the directions, they will have made 2 plants for each group. They're going to observe these over several days. There's a second part to the experiment that they won't be able to do until each of the plant has 4 leaves. That will happen generally about 10 days into the plants growing. So they'll just need to observe the plants until then, and then on the bottom of the page it does tell them that they will do another experiment once they have plants with 4 leaves each. They're going to put one of their plants in a dark location, keep one in the light, and observe how the plants are doing at that point. It's another great chance for them to integrate their math standards, as they can use their rulers to measure those plants as they continue to grow.